Hi everyone, how are you? John Phillips live in the Man Cave. It's 10 to 8. It's a cold night on the 12th of May and it's budget night. Thought I'd get in here quick and do this and offer my thoughts about the budget that's just been announced. And because it's budget and we're talking tax and very intellectual things, I thought I'd wear my glasses so I look smarter than I actually am when I'm talking about these sort of things that I sometimes understand. But anyway, 12th of May, we're a month away from being halfway through the year. How crazy is that? The weather's definitely now had a shift. It's a little bit cooler. But what's happening in the property market, purely because things seem to be changing a lot at the moment, and there's a lot of commentary out there in terms of what the market's doing, what it's going to do, and now also what's happening in terms of capital gains tax and things like that from the budget that's just been announced. So let's go for that straight away, straight off the bat. Government's announced. I've got it up here on my laptop, so I didn't have to remember it. I can just quickly read out what it actually means. A quick snapshot for the housing market. It's been all over the news the last 24 hours about how the government are changing things, from obviously promising that they weren't going to change it. You know, when I go to parties and I go out at night, John, how's the market going? And what do you think's going to happen in the market? This is the very reason why it's so bloody hard to predict what's going to go on in the property market, because you get things that change. And when things change, it just throws everything up. But anyway, let's go through it. Housing tax reform. So this is what it might mean for the housing market. This is what they've announced. 50% capital gains tax replaced from next year with a discount based on inflation and a minimum 30% tax rate on capital gains. From July 27, negative gearing is now limited to new homes. Existing investments will be grandfathered for people that obviously own properties already. They're the main things that we'll talk about. So, and this is all, of course, to help first-time buyers get into the property market, which is great. Every first-time buyer wants to get into the market at some point. I don't know what it's going to do. It's certainly going to put more pressure on the existing rentals that are currently there and those that are being grandfathered under the capital gains or under the negative gearing, because with them, a lot of investors now buying new properties or having to buy new build homes. I don't know whether they will do that, because generally the new build homes are in areas where they ordinarily might not invest, because the rental yields might not actually be there. So I don't know what impact that'll have on the new builds, but in terms of existing stuff, I can see there being less rentals around the place. I don't see the prices coming down in terms of sales value, and I'll get to that. So if there's fewer rentals in place, because some investors have wanted to sell based on now these guidelines, it's just going to put more pressure from the rental market, which will mean it'll cost more to be a tenant in a property. So therefore, if you're a first-time buyer trying to get in the market and you're renting in the meantime, that kind of seems that you're taking from one and taking from the and giving back to the other. I don't know how that's going to play out. We'll have to wait and see. It also stops first-time buyers. They're not all looking to buy a first home for themselves, because they might not be able to afford where they actually want to live, and they're not prepared to move. So therefore, they're quite happy to rent or stay with family or do whatever, or maybe they're collecting income together with friends or whatever. So therefore, they want to invest elsewhere, as in buying investment properties, whether it's WA or wherever it might be. This might stop them doing that. So again, there might be some first-time buyers that it'll help, but it also might take away from other first-time buyers. Immigration is still very strong. There's still loads of people moving into the area. They're not investors. They're people looking to buy a home for themselves. So therefore, the property market, you might see, it's definitely, there's more properties available right now, but the amount of people that are still coming in, the demand is still very strong. And in the current property market, whilst there's commentary out there about bloody market crashes and whatever that's happening or being predicted to happen, the demand is still so strong. It's definitely, the edges come off it. Make no bones about it, the edges definitely come off the market. Instead of getting 20 people through a home open, you might be getting now 6, 7 or 8 through a home open. You only really need one buyer. As long as they're still prepared to pay a good amount of money for the home, it's still all happening. So in terms of going forward with these announcements from the budget, yeah, I reckon it's going to depends who you talk to, but in terms of what their feeling will be. But I certainly think the sales market, the property values will remain inherently strong. Again, we came from a very undervalued place. We've just played catch up. And yes, there have been some sales that have gone through that you think, wow. And this is where sellers have got to be careful. If you're out there in the marketplace looking to sell right now, whilst buyers are considering, what do I do? Is this budget going to mean the market's going to crash? Is it more properties that are popping up online? I've got all the time in the world now to sit back, relax, and just get a property that suits myself. As a seller, I see it happening now all the time. We've had a 6-month period where people were paying 50, 100, 150, some 200 grand over the asking price on some properties. Now, fast forward, sellers are now going straight to that top price. And dumb agents are also telling them, hey, well, that one sold down the road at 1.2. I didn't think they'd get that, but they got 100 grand over asking price. I reckon we can do the same, but let's start at 1.2 because clearly that one sold for that. Your house has to be worth that. Let's go at 1.2, 1.25. We might get 1.3, 1.4 for you. That is happening. It's dumb. It's stupid. Shouldn't be happening. And as a seller, you got to be really careful because to get that 1.2 offer, what happened was the agent that did that had a really good campaign where maybe it was buyers over 1.1, which would have been around the market value for that home. All the competition came into that property and bang, it spits out the top result, which could have been around that 1.2. If you go too far, you're going to miss that competition coming to your property and you ain't going to get that top dollar result. And if anything, you'll just get low numbers through the door and people challenging you why you want something that's not quite there because they're looking at this 1.2 sale thinking that might just be a freak of a sale. And the way things are going, there's more properties coming on the market. There's budgets being announced. Things are changing all the time. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to just chill out and wait and see what you do with your property. So as a seller right now in the market, there is still good offers to be had. 100% there is. But don't get greedy. You're getting caught in the trap of agents coming to you that don't know any better. They got no experience in this sort of market. But then you've got, let me just get rid of that. But then they're getting caught in that trap where the agents are telling them one thing, they're believing it, they're going to market, and all of a sudden you might see now, if you're looking at real reports and things like that, days on market slightly stretching out. Now, I've been in a market in the Mandurah area where days on market was bloody 100 days. Now it's gone from, say, 5 to 14. Whoop-de-doo. So it's no big deal, but please, as a seller, don't get caught up in being too greedy with your property. It is a bit scary what the government are trying to do. And again, I'm not trying to become an expert or talk about things I don't understand. But when they announce, they do all these sort of things. They announced, what was the thing the other day they announced? I can't remember. But they did this 5% low deposit loan. Shut up, Harry. The other thing that they did the other day was about the first homeowners, no stamp duty up to now 600,000 has gone from 500 to 600,000. Who's buying a property at less than 500 grand at the moment or less than 600 grand to save on stamp duty? A few months back, this is when they should have done it, when there were properties at that, or maybe a year ago, they should have done that. Probably didn't suit them then with the stamp duty that they were generating. But anyway, so they announced this 5% deposit, low doc loans or low deposit loans, 95% mortgages you can now get for properties. All of a sudden, all that did is that a 700 grand home buys it straight in at 850. That's all that they were doing. But some of these buyers I know have gone absolutely straight to the maximum they can afford. And I worry about how much budgeting they've done if rates keep going up. If rates keep going up, things will continue to change. There's maybe one more rate rise coming before the end of the year is what they're told. Who knows? With everything that's going on, it could be 3 or 4. It could also come down. Who knows? But anyway, they're cutting the cloth so close to the edge. People buying properties and building. I've spoken actually to a building supervisor who has said they've actually had a couple of deals fall over lately where this last one interest rate rise has meant a buyer has now gone from being able to afford it to not being able to afford it. That's how close people are now borrowing and they're going to the hilt. I also worry about some people with equity in properties in terms of how smart people are with what they've done, with some of the equity that they've now got in their homes. People all of a sudden now got a lot more property inside their home. So what are you doing with that? And I think it's good now with anything like this that's happening with capital gains tax to really have a look and go and chat to a really good financial advisor about what the smart play might be. There are so many things going on in the market right now. It's really hard to keep up because we've had a 3-year period where it's just been berserk. Things have risen, they've doubled in price, it feels like overnight. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts at the moment, and it is hard to predict which way it's going to go. And the financial year is coming up as well. Sometimes that is a time where people reflect in terms of what's going on, and the new financial year again normally brings about good activity. But we will see. There are definitely more properties hitting the market. I think now we're over 4,000 properties available. Still a long way under what the actual market average is of about 15,000. However, it's double what it was about 6 months ago. So slum changes are happening. So again, as a seller, be careful with what you're doing with your property to try and sell it. But the demand is still strong. So that's why I'm not too worried about the dollar value on a home. So many people moving into WA, especially the Mandurah region. We are still, whilst we've improved, we're still way undervalued, I think, compared to other parts of WA, which may feel a bit of an adjustment coming if that happens, and if people look at this and go, is it the time to do nothing? Tell you what, if you're a buyer though, this is the kind of optimum time where some buyers definitely will back out of the market. No doubt about it. This sort of stuff scares them. Don't understand it that much. To be honest, I'm a real estate agent, don't understand it that much. But they do back out and they go, maybe now's not the time. Maybe I'll just wait. And often a lot of buyers wait for somebody to say, now's the time to buy, which never happens. But the smart buyer will look at this as maybe now is the opportunity to get out there, try and negotiate. Maybe now you will be one of only 2 offers on a property. Maybe you'll be the only offer on a property. So therefore, it could be a great opportunity for you to not have to go crazy with that offer. Play it a little bit smarter and try and get something that you feel is closer to your market value than these stupidly high seller expectations that are currently out there. So yeah, it'll be an interesting time to see how this all plays out. This is fresh off the press. It's now 8:01, and obviously this was only announced in the last hour or two. So let's see what happens. Look, real estate, people will always buy and sell properties. It goes on, the wheels keep moving, and it'll just be some different thought patterns going forward for a little while, I think. But a smart play for buyers, get out there and buy properties. Sellers, don't be too stupid. Agents, back in your box. If you're doing anything real estate related, please give me a call. I want to help out. See you soon, 8:02. I'm cold. I'm going in the house. Bye.